case you haven't guessed it, today we're playing Blaster Master. Until we win. For those of you who don't know, Blaster Master is the English localization of the Japanese game Super Planetary War Records Metafight. And I have a feeling that most of you already know why this game was given the name Blaster Master instead. So in this game you play Jason, who's trying to hunt down his pet frog who has suddenly mutated to several times its normal size and gone down a deep hole. Oddly enough, you have to kill the frog twice in this game. Anyway, Fred mutates and falls down a hole, so you jump in after him. Careless? Sure. Reckless? Absolutely. But he's your frog, goddammit, and you could always just pick one up at the pet store or find one in the swamp. I don't know, maybe it's just the appeal of having a mutated frog for a pet that made Jason jump down there in the first place. As soon as you start the game, one thing strikes you. This music is awesome! Seriously, it's one of the best soundtracks of the 8-bit era, hands down. I gotta agree with the nerd on this one. Sunsoft made some classic 8-bit music. This game is distinct in that it's almost caught between two eras of gaming. On one hand, it has an awesome soundtrack and actual story, although the story can really only be compared to a child's pop-up book, and complex gameplay elements. On the other hand, the game is relentless. You get 2 lives, no save points, no continues, no passwords. Once you're out of lives, it's game over and back to the beginning with you. This game has 2 elements, gun and jump and an overhead Zelda-style shooting game. In the gun and jump position, you'll usually control Sophia the Third, your battle tank, which can fire its gun, dive underwater, jump and hover in the air, and even move on walls and ceilings. In the overhead portion, you'll basically fire your gun and try not to die. Of course, it's in these sections that you'll fight the bosses to obtain your tank's special power-ups. And believe me, there are a ton of power-ups in this game. Sophia's gun can be powered up twice, once to kill a mutated door blocking your way, and a second time to break some blocks in the levels. Sophia can also be equipped with a hover module that lets the tank fly for a short amount of time, depending on how much hover power you've collected. There's a key that you can collect, which I guess is kind of a special power since it's on the power-up screen, but really it just unlocks a door. Sophia has a dive module that you'll get later in the game, which allows you to float freely in the water. The tank also has 2 wall modules that you can collect. One lets you drive on the walls, and then the other lets you drive on ceilings. Jason's gun can be powered up in the overhead stages. The first 3 levels increase the gun's range, speed, and number of projectiles on screen, while the last 2 increase the amount of damage the gun does, as well as give the projectiles a funky pattern that can hit almost anything on the screen. The other guns, well, they're not so useful. I mean, they fire a pattern that actually goes around Jason, and what's the use of a gun that doesn't fire forward? Aside from shooting his gun, Jason can also shoot plutonium bombs at enemies. They're not useful for much of the game, but they dish out more damage than your gun does and can come in handy in some boss fights. Now, Blaster Master is a long and difficult game, and without any continues, it's going to be difficult to beat. Of course, I've got the tips that are going to help you stay alive. You can exit your tank by pressing select. While you might think that this only has a limited use, it's surprisingly effective at conserving your tank's energy. If you jump out of the tank and kill the enemies yourself, when you jump back in, you'll have full life. Entering and exiting rooms and switching between areas are the 2 easiest ways to force items to respawn. If you don't have enough hover power or you're low on health, but you know where you can pick up a power-up, simply taking advantage of the area switch can often save you. This game is long. Very long. So it's a good idea to bypass any enemies you don't really need to kill. Unless it's a boss or they're in your way, your best option is to simply walk away. Early in the game, water sucks. Your tank is slowed down and can't jump very high. Fortunately, Jason can swim much better than the tank can. If you're impatient, swimming through the water is the fastest way around. Otherwise, using the tank is the safest method. Some of these bosses are crazy difficult, but some of them, most notably the frog, can be killed with a simple pause trick. Hit the boss with a plutonium bomb and then press start. You should see the boss blinking and the bomb exploding. Wait 25 seconds and the boss will be dead. Of course, if you screw up and pause while you're taking damage, well, you're gonna die. Try not to do that. If you take damage in the overhead stages, Jason's gun will also lose power. If you had maximum power before, your gun will be knocked down in power. At this point, I'd recommend either maxing out your gun power immediately or taking more damage so you can knock the gun back down to about 3 units. This way, you'll be able to fire in a straight line again. The game map is confusing as heck, and it's reminiscent of Metroid. Basically, you're in a large world where you need to travel to different areas, using the powers you acquired from previous areas. Did you get all of that? No? I can't blame you. Don't worry, we're gonna go over it again as we go over the different sections. Just pay more attention next time. The first area of the game is fairly straightforward. You go to the right and kill enemies. You can visit the various rooms that'll give you some power for your gun, but you only need to concern yourself with this door. Enter here and fight your way through to the boss. The one good thing about these overhead stages is that they're not exactly tricky. Just run around and blow up the enemies. The boss of this area is a giant brain? It's not that difficult to beat. The only things that can hurt you are the circling brainlets and the boss itself. There are no projectiles to worry about. Just fire away until he's dead, then pick up your first tank upgrade, the Hyper Beam. Getting to Area 2 isn't too difficult. In your exploration, you probably come across this green doorway. If you don't know where it is, just get out of the water and go to the left. You'll come across a small nook that you can barely fit in. When you first encounter this thing without the Hyper Beam, you can't do much other than get killed. Well, now that you've got an upgraded gun, you can destroy it and move on to Area 2. This second area can feel a bit like a maze because everything basically looks the same, save for a few distinct sections. But if you just take the time to explore the whole area, you'll find a couple of rooms that you can enter to power up Jason's gun. Getting to the boss here requires that you go up. From the start of the area, go to the right in the tunnel, then start going up. The room here will take you to the level boss, Crabulus. Crabulus is pretty easy if you simply take your time. Shoot at him from a distance so you've got enough time to react to his claws, and you should be fine. Don't bother with your bombs in this fight because getting too close is pretty much a guaranteed way to die at this point. Just be patient and take your shots at him when you can, and Crabulus will go down and you'll get the Crusher Beam. Now, getting to Area 3. Navigating Area 3 can be a bit tricky, if only because it's longer than the other two stages. Essentially, what you want to do is go up and to the right at all times. Occasionally, you'll need to drop down or go to the left, but overall, you need to move to the right. Now, you know you're going in the right direction when you end up in an area with a black background that has green spots. You'll also know it's the correct area because you'll need to navigate around these yellow crates. The door to the boss's room is located at the very end of the stage in a room all by itself. Now, getting to the boss isn't very difficult at all. In fact, all you need to do is keep going down until you can't anymore. Go to the right and then start going up. You'll fight the boss, Photofage. This guy is pretty simple, as long as you kill him quickly. He'll appear in random locations. Continually shoot him until he disappears. If you don't shoot him in time, he'll leave behind a frozen image of himself, which blocks your path. The more copies of himself that he's able to keep around, the more difficult avoiding him is. Just keep at it, and he should go down without too much of a fight. Killing him will net you the Hover ability. Now, getting to Area 4 is where I as a kid would always fail. I figured that since I saw this wall with spikes on it and had a little hole at the top, I could just hover up. And if I hovered up over there, I'd eventually find my way to Area 4. Well, 20 years later, it turns out I was completely wrong. The entrance to Area 4 is at the very beginning of the game. Yeah, Stage 1. And when I say very beginning, I mean very beginning. You gotta go all the way back to where you first spawned. Yeah. This game really expected you to explore every nook and cranny. So fight your way back to Area 1, to the very beginning of the stage, and hover upwards. You'll come across these platforms. Be careful of the enemies that like to leap out at you, since taking damage while hovering will send you crashing down. Grab the hover power up on the ledge, then hover upwards again. Repeat that 3 times and you'll find a door. Enter it and go down to find the entrance to Area 4. Now I'm sure that this level will please the spoony one. It's a sewer level. Getting through the sewers can be a pain in the butt. You're going to face the same problems here that you did in Area 2. Everything looks the same and you can get lost pretty easily. Now in this overhead stage, getting to the boss itself is easy and very straightforward. The boss, on the other hand, can be a problem. This stage boss is Fred, your pet frog, and it turns out that he's not the friendly type of frog because he wants to kill you. The pattern here is really simple. Fred hops around 3 times and then attacks. For his first attack, he'll whip his tongue out at you. His second attack, he'll vomit something at you. And his third attack is a fireball that can quickly drain your health. How do you beat him? Keep track of the number of times he's jumped. When he's about to land after his third jump, go to the side and shoot him in the mouth when it's open. Now this takes a lot of practice, as he's pretty much invincible unless you hit a specific spot. You can do this for the first 2 attacks, but don't bother trying to hit Fred on the third attack. Just avoid the fireball, otherwise you'll get hit and take 2 units of damage. Repeat until you beat Fred and acquire the big key. Now making use of the big key isn't too difficult. Just go back to the beginning of Area 4 on the second screen. There are 3 doors here. The upper left door takes you back to Area 1, the lower left takes you to the rest of Area 4, and the lower right takes you to where you use the big key. When you get here, you'll unlock the first doorway, but then you're stuck. Get out of the tank, climb up the ladder, and head to the right. After some basic platforming, make your way down and unlock the second door. Climb back in the tank, and move to the right to head to Area 5. Well, it's time to jump in the water. Head to the bottom of the lake and shoot out the bricks that are in your way, then sink deeper to the bottom. Eventually you'll get stuck in a pit at the bottom of the lake. You won't be able to jump out of it, so get out of the tank and swim to the left, entering the room on the left. Continue swimming, and you'll find the boss's room. Now getting to the boss from here isn't that difficult. Go down, to the right, and then down again, and you'll encounter one of the most difficult bosses of the game, Hardshell. And believe me, this guy's a doozy. Oh, he'll start off tame, just shooting bubbles out of his mouth to the left or right, but once he starts to take damage, watch out, because he starts firing off these bubbles fast and furious, to the point where it's almost impossible to hit him and not take damage. Let me tell you, you're gonna die. A lot. There are 2 ways to beat him. Either have a full gun or learn the strafing trick. With a maxed out gun, this guy wouldn't be any problem. Just sit there and beat the crap out of him. But if you're an idiot and died while trying to kill the boss, like I am, then you're going to need to work on your strategy. First, use the strafe trick. By pressing and holding the A button, you can strafe to the left or right, which makes hitting the boss immeasurably easier. Second, be very patient. I had to beat this boss using only the basic gun, and it was really difficult. I'd recommend using at least a level 2 or 3 gun for this guy, if only for the added range and ammunition. So what's the trick? Above all else, make sure you hit the bubbles in your way. Eventually you'll be able to take your shots on the boss, but once he starts shooting bubbles out rapidly, you need to be very defensive and only attack when the opportunity presents itself. If you're too aggressive in this battle, you're gonna die. I guarantee it. Oh, by the way, do yourself a favor and don't die too much, because if you do, well, you're gonna go back to the beginning of the game, only to be frustrated when you get back up to this point and die again. Strafe, be defensive, and take your shots when you can. You'll eventually beat Hardshell and acquire the dive module. Head back to the tank to test out your new swimming abilities. To get to Area 6, swim straight up, all the way up until you reach the beginning of the level. Head to the right, exit the water, and enter the room on the right. From there, keep going to the right and enter Area 6. Now this stage is blessedly very straightforward, if you know what you're doing. All you have to do is go up and to the right. Oh, by the way, make sure your hover power is maxed out because you'll run across 2 screens where it is essential that you hover to stay alive, otherwise you'll fall into a pit of spikes. Keep going up and to the right, and eventually you'll come across this big wall of breakable blocks. Make a rudimentary stairway out of them, climb up, and enter the boss room. Now this room isn't too difficult. The only problem you'll run into are the icy patches.
Careful of the icy patch!
Your objective is to go down. If you see the opportunity to go up, ignore it and go down. Eventually you'll run into the boss, Frozen Crabulus. This guy is much harder the second time around. This time he shoots projectiles from his mouth and his arms, plus his arms are twice as long. A hit and run technique generally works against this guy, but you can also use the bomb glitch to make the boss pathetically easy. Keep at it and you'll acquire the Wall 1 module. Now if you don't want to use a glitch, then sticking to a hit and run technique is your only option because he's very dangerous and strikes extremely quickly. To get to Area 7, you've got to backtrack a lot to get to Area 2. In Area 2, just keep going to the right. Don't go up. This will take you straight to the gold room. From there, go down all the way and take the last door on the left. Continue to the left and you'll be in the room that looks like it has no ceiling. Using your new wall module, climb the side of the wall until you hit the top. Jump off and hover over to the door at the top of the room. Continue right and you'll find your way to Area 7. Now this area is pretty big, and there's no quick route to the boss. Go right until you move to another room that looks like brown floors on a neon green background. And yes, it hurt my eyes too. In this room, your goal is to get to the upper right portion of the screen. Of course, the game is going to force you to get there in a very roundabout sort of way, going down, right, up, and around. Thankfully, it's not too bad, as the wrong way generally immediately leads to a dead end. Once you find your way around, you'll be at the boss room. This time you get to face the Solar Enhanced Fred, and wow is he hard. You can't even use the bomb trick on him to take him out. Now, you can use the same tactics you used before on Fred, namely waiting until he falls to the ground, moving to the side of his face and attacking him, but he's much more difficult this time around, mostly because the pattern is completely different and it's much longer, making it harder to memorize. To be more specific, his pattern contains 47 different moves. Yeah, that's gonna be a little difficult to memorize, so your best option here is to just react to what he does rather than studying a book, unless you're freaky like that. Just keep at it and eventually he'll go down, letting you collect the Wall 2 module. Now it's time to make your way to Area 8. But to do that, we've got to do even more backtracking. To Area 3. You remember the wall of spikes with the narrow opening above them that we couldn't hover through? Well, take your new wall powers to that room, cling to the walls and ceiling with your Wall 2 module, and make your way to Area 8. This room is really simple. All you have to do is head straight up. The first room you see is the boss's chamber. first boss you face, the Plutonium boss, isn't all that difficult. He'll fire out a couple of bouncing balls that'll take up most of the screen and real estate. Thankfully, your Nintendo should start to slow down at this point, because Sunsoft did not use the flicker trick to make drawing quick. Now that you've slowed down, avoiding the balls is pretty simple. Just don't get too confident, otherwise you could make a very fatal mistake. Keep shooting the boss in the face when you get a chance, otherwise devote your attention to avoiding the bouncing balls. He should go down without too much of a problem. The next boss is the Underworld Lord, and he can be pretty tough if you don't know his weakness. He can't hit you if you're in the lower right corner of the screen. Strafe your way to the lower right square of the battlefield and attack him mercilessly. He will never land a hit on you. I have to admit, those are some pretty cool ending graphics, although it doesn't really wrap up any story, and why did Jason's hair turn blue? Whatever. Anyway, that's Blaster Master, folks, and to all of you out there who have been complaining that I haven't been doing hard games, I hope this makes up for it, because Blaster Master is difficult. I don't care what you say. That's a difficult game. Any game that doesn't give you continues or saves and is that expansive is hard. But I know what you guys want. You want to see me torture myself, don't you? Yeah, you want to see me put myself through some of the hardest games out there, and Blaster Master doesn't exactly qualify as the hardest to you guys. No, you want something that's on the level of Silver Surfer and Battletoads. Something that other video game reviewers haven't beaten. You want to watch me writhing in agony, don't you? Well, next week I'm going to give you a Christmas present a little early. Because next week we're going to play